Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're going to try something a little bit new tonight. We're going to try to start a podcast to go along with this live show that we do. So I hope everything's going to go smooth so that we can get it recorded. And that way you guys can go back to Spotify, podcasters, and find it. So we got it going right now. We'll see if it gets recorded, and I'll bring it to you. Keep it live and archive this. So just in case you don't have Facebook, if you guys listen to us on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio or 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, you guys can come to the podcast. It's Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on Spotify, and Spotify for podcasters is what we're doing the recording on. So we'll see how it ends up. We'll see if we can get it on there for you. It'll just give you another avenue to go back and watch the shows that we do. So I'm glad to be here. Today's Memorial Day. We've had a great weekend. It's nice to have a day off. We spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time with my family this weekend, and of course we know what this weekend represents. You know, we're memorializing all those people who've lost their lives to fight for our country, and we sure appreciate them doing that and making that ultimate sacrifice. So thank you for all the families out there, all the people that had someone that we're memorializing today, and we appreciate their effort. We appreciate their effort a lot. We also appreciate your effort every single day to keep America going and keep it going, keeping this whole world going, actually. So we got listeners from the show all around the world. So, you know, we're trying to keep what this show is all about is to try to bring you health information, really health education. It was funny when I was putting this little podcast, getting signed up for it tonight. I had to put on there, what is this? What was it? What's your topic about? And it gave me education and it gave me health. And I was like, man, I don't know which one of those I should choose, because really what I think this show is about health, but it's about the education of health. And I think what a doctor is a teacher. And that's what I think my skills are. And what I do best is to try to teach. And so that's really, I don't know what I think it's health education more than anything else. I think it empowers the people that listen to the show. My goal is to empower you, to give you the information that you need so that you can live the greatest life possible, so that you can shine your light as bright as possible into the world and make the world as good a place as you can. And I thought a lot about that this weekend. I thought a lot about it yesterday at church, and what we do on Monday nights is we do a show called Take Health to Church, and we take the sermon that we got yesterday at church and we apply it to health. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to do that exact same thing. We're going to apply it to health. And it's a great one. It's one of my favorite parts of health, and it's because it's talking about our why. And while I was doing that, I was looking around the church, and I was looking around the people that at church. And then today at lunch, we went out to eat at lunch, and I was sitting in the restaurant, and I was just looking at people. And one of the things we did this weekend is drive around, see if we can help my daughter find a house. And so we were looking at real estate all over town. And if you ever get a chance to do that, it's quite humbling. You drive through all kinds of different neighborhoods. You drive through. We didn't drive through any upscale neighborhoods or anything, because we can't afford that house right now. But we drove around lots of different neighborhoods, and I just saw people out there in their yards. I saw a bunch of people mowing their grass, or working on their boat, or working on one guy had some cabinets out in the driveway, and he was trying to redo his cabinets, and another guy was working. There were several people working on their trucks or whatever, and just things going on. Just lots of normal folks that live normal lives, that live in normal neighborhoods, that just might not know anything about health. And because I used to be one of those people that was a normal guy that lived in a normal house and with a normal family, and I grew up in that family, and health was never talked about. It was never talked about through my younger days. It was never talked about through my first career of coaching football. We didn't talk about health. We talked about football. That's what we talked about. And the one thing that's constant to all of us, the one thing that we all one of the things that we all have in common is our health, is whether or not we can sustain our health, whether or not we can achieve a high level of health, or if we don't, we will have to deal with the consequences of poor health. And so what we try to do on this show is talk about health, and welcome to all the new people that are out there. I know some of you guys will be flipping through your phones tonight, and you'll see the show. You'll see if you want to wait, maybe 3 seconds to see whether or not it's something that you want to listen to or not. But maybe you will. Maybe you'll just say, hey, what's he got to talk about tonight? What is he going to tell us that might make us better? What is he going to tell me that might make my life better? Or what is he going to tell me that might make my spouse's life better, or my kids' life better? You can just look around. If you're watching this show, just look around in your house. Just think about your family and friends. If you're watching the show, if you're listening to the show on the radio, just think about the people that you influence in your life, or just the people that are around you in your life. Could their health be better? And if it could, what's keeping that from happening? Why can we not achieve a high level of health? And maybe we can. And maybe you guys that watch the show are doing a great job, and I know a lot of you do. And I'm by no means the world's greatest expert on health and wellness, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't believe there is the world's greatest expert on health and wellness. I don't believe anybody's got it figured out. There's close to 8 billion people now on the planet, and you try to figure out, what is your goal with health? What do you want to accomplish? Are you trying to be the fittest person on earth, like the CrossFitters are? Are you trying to be the best, marathon runner on earth? Are you trying to just be the best mom you could be? What are you trying to do with your health? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to create longevity? Are you trying to maximize this? You don't care anything about your health. You're trying to make as much money and have as much fun as you can, and you're just going to drink your way into death, and then that's it. Like, I think all those things are important, because I think it really clarifies what decisions we want to make when it comes to our health. What is important? What stage of life are you in? Are you in the stage where you're still driving like I am, like you're here on Memorial Day, live in your office, sitting here by yourself, and trying to get better at your craft, that you're trying to create a better product for people, that you're out there trying to keep driving through life? Or are you just 20 something and you're not even thinking about driving through life? Or are you 60 or 70 or 80 and you're just like, you know what, I think I'll just have a piece of cake. I don't care. It's like, you have to make those decisions. So that's what we do. That's what we do on our show. We try to talk about health. And tonight we're going to bring some scripture to you, because we're going to take health to church. But I do want to go over, before we get started on that, I want to go over an article that I found that it's a little bit older article, but it's a super interesting article that we haven't talked about on the show. And just to give you a background, this is a chiropractic wellness office. I met a guy, we were looking at one of the houses. He said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a wellness chiropractor. And he kind of looked at me funny. He's like, well, what is a wellness chiropractor? I never heard of that before. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I should have gotten you to hear about that before now, but I'm glad we finally had a chance to do it. And I said, well, we focus on family wellness with an emphasis on functional neurology. We want your brain to work great so that your body works great, but we're going to focus on your diet, your fitness, your sleep, your social relationships. We're going to focus on all those things. The Dr. Chestnut's Eat Well, Move Well, and Think Well, right? Those are the things that we're going to try to focus on in a wellness clinic, not pain management or workers' comp or car wrecks or any of that stuff. We don't do that stuff here at The Rock. We don't do car wrecks. We don't, very, very seldom, maybe once a year, we'll have a patient that I've been taking care of for a long time that gets in a car wreck, and we'll help her out or him out for just a short period of time. But that's not really what we do. And I've never done a workers' comp case in my life. And I'm not the back pain guy. We do have people that have pains and we have to address them, but we're really trying to be well. So let's tie something in that you might not have ever heard before in this article. This is from um, Pharmacology. I don't know, Revolution. I don't know. It's Farm Call REV on my little paper here. Volume 52, issue 4, page 595 through 638. This is from December of 2000. So we're back 24 years almost with this one. It says, the title of the article says, The Sympathetic Nerve, an integrative interface between two super systems, the brain and the immune system. And so the brain and the immune system are the two major adaptive systems of the body. This is from the article. During an immune response, the brain and immune system talk to each other, and this process is essential for maintaining homeostasis. Two major pathway systems are involved in this crosstalk: the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, so brain through the spinal cord to the adrenal glands, right? And the sympathetic nervous system, which is pretty much in the spinal cord, and that most of the cell bodies are in the spinal cord there. So this overview focuses on the role of the sympathetic nervous system in neuroimmune interactions, an area that has received much less attention than the role of the HPA axis. Evidence accumulated over the last 20 years suggests that norepinephrine fulfills the criteria of neurotransmitter neuromodulator in lymphoid organs, your lymph glands. Thus, primary and secondary lymphoid organs receive extensive sympathetic noradrenergic innervation. Your sympathetic nervous system has extensive innervation of your lymph nodes. Your lymph nodes fight off disease, bacteria, in invaders. Not your lymph nodes, but that's where that's kind of like the hub of where the cells come, the white blood cells and the immune system cells that are involved in attacks upon the body, right? So under stimulation, noradrenaline is released from the sympathetic nerve terminals in these organs, and the target immune cells express adrenoreceptors. So they're getting that. It's basically your adrenaline, your norepinephrine, and your epinephrine is considered, that's your adrenaline, right? So through stimulation of these receptors, locally released norepinephrine or circulating catecholamines such as epinephrine affect lymphocyte traffic, circulation, and proliferation, and modulate cytokine production and the functional activity of different lymph cells. Your sympathetic nervous system fires to your lymph nodes to control your immune response. We get a lot of pushback in chiropractic when people talk about, well, you guys think you could cure everything or whatever, right? Which we don't. We never said that ever. We just understand that the nervous system controls the immune system, and directly or indirectly, and that if your nervous system has interference, then the efficiency of your nervous system to immune system processes become weaker, which slows your immune response down, which makes it more likely that those invaders will create some sort of problem. So yeah, that's but there's more to it. Although there exists substantial sympathetic innervation in the bone marrow, and particularly in the thymus and mucosal tissues, our knowledge about the effects of the sympathetic neural input on hemopoiesis, thymocyte development, and mucosal immunity is extremely modest. Wow. So there's a bunch of mechanisms that are going on, and the brain and the immune system are the two major adaptive super systems, and those things are working together. The autonomic nervous system via direct neural influences, the neuroendocrine humoral outflow via the pituitary. So you're getting immune system efficiency with healthy nervous system, and your sympathetic nervous system is firing to your immune system. So if you understand that, now you can kind of understand that a hyperimmune system, a hypersympathetic response might create a hyperimmune system. So if we're under stress a lot and we have high levels of stress, which means we have high levels of the firing pattern of this norepinephrine, and we get this adrenaline in the brain, and we have this stress response that basically occurs in the right hemisphere of the brain, then we may be overstimulating our immune system, which might end up in some sort of autoimmune issue for us, right? We could have that going on. So we want, as Judy Mikovits says, we want a very calm, low immune response, immune system, not a low immune response, but we want a low, calm immune system. We don't want that thing fired up all the time, because think about what the first response to the immune system is. One of the first responses is inflammation, right? So we try to fight inflammation all the time, but think about, maybe that's what we're doing, is our stress levels are causing an increased amount of inflammation because it's stimulating our immune response when there's nothing to be stimulated at. That could possibly be the case. So you might not have known that. You might not have known that getting adjusted helps your immune response, that keeping a good, calm nervous system helps a good, calm immune response. That might be something that you didn't know. And it's people tell me that all the time. They're like, oh, I used to have all kinds of allergies, or I used to have all kinds of sickness, or I can't remember the last time that I got a cold or something like that. Those people that get adjusted on a pretty regular basis, they tell me that story a lot. I get that a lot of times. So that's it. The sympathetic nerve, an integrative interface between two super systems, the brain and the immune system. And that's PharmCol REV. I don't know what that is. It's an abbreviation for something maybe. You can look it up. Volume 52, issue 4, December of 2000. Okay, so let's get to our Take Health to Church night. So this was great, really. And you didn't know what to expect because it was Memorial Day weekend, and you're just like, I don't know what kind of story we're going to get this week, or how much energy is going to be put into this sermon. But I'll tell you what, I was super impressed with the sermon. Grant Politz is the one that put it on. We go to Hillside Church here in Lubbock, and they've got about 4 pastors that I've heard preach there. They rotate. They've got like 11 different campuses, and so they rotate. Their main one is in Amarillo, and then I believe Grant is here in Lubbock, and so that's who put this on yesterday. And it is a great sermon, and it's a great lesson to teach for health. And so I hope I'll do it justice tonight. I'm going to try my hardest to do it justice tonight. So it's Matthew 13, if you guys want to take a look at it. Matthew 13, verses 44 and then 45 and 46. And Jesus is talking, and he's been talking. There's some scripture above that, and this is Stories That Jesus Told is the title of the message that's been going on for the last several weeks. Stories That Jesus Told. So he's talking about hidden treasure. And he's talking about, and so I'll just read them first. So the first one is Matthew 13, 44. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all that he had and bought that field. And then 45 said, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. And so these are 2 very short little stories that Jesus told, but the way that they presented them yesterday was fantastic in sharing with us our why. Really, what would happen? How would you act if you found a massive treasure in a field? And so they broke it down into 3 different things. They broke it down into finding, selling, and buying. And so his first His first analogy was, you know, I'll read it again. This is verse 44. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Well, so it was presented yesterday that you got to kind of envision what was happening right there. So there was a man, there was a treasure hidden in a field. So who hid it? And why would they hide it? And that's what he was kind of giving some historical reference yesterday when he said, like, back in the day, we didn't have alarms that we could just click on our house to protect the stuff when we're gone, and we didn't have cameras that we could watch our house from our phone, and we didn't have all these security guards or things to protect us, or wasn't typical neighborhoods like what they have today in some areas. But there's the security of a home 2,000 years ago. If someone left that home, someone else come along, they might just take whatever's there, right? So if you had some sort of treasure that meant a lot to you, something that meant a lot, that was valuable, you might actually bury it in a field until you were ready to use it. And it reminded me of if you guys have ever watched Dances with Wolves, when Kevin Costner is out there at the fort after he's already, he's got all these supplies, and he's like, I better do something with these supplies. So he went out and he hid all those supplies. He dug holes out in the field, and he put the guns in there so that no one could steal them if he was away from the fort. And then the night that the buffalo came, he ran back quickly into the field, and then he found them and he dug them up, and then he had the guns and shared them, and they went on the big buffalo hunt, and it was a big deal in the movie, right? So the point of it is that this guy's out there working in a field, and he stumbles upon this treasure. Like he hits something in the field, and he's like, what is that? Well, it was something that was put there beforehand. It was a treasure that was put in the field way before he ever came along. And he just kind of stumbled up upon it. And then he found it, and he was like, oh my gosh, like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I can't believe, look what I found. I found gold or whatever it was that was in that field. But it was such an amazing find. The find was so great that he hit it again. Like he's like, whoa, hold up a second. Like, I'm gonna have to. I can't tell anybody right now. I've got to own this. I've got to figure out what to do. And so he goes home. It says, and then in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field. So before he went out that day to work, he didn't think about selling all of his stuff. I guarantee you, the morning before he went to work that day, if someone would have come up to him before he left the house and said, hey, I'd like you to sell me all this stuff, he would be like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I need this stuff. This stuff is important. That's my favorite phone right there. I'm not selling you that. That's my favorite tool. That's my best fishing rod right there. I'm not selling that stuff. That stuff means something to me. I've been keeping it in my garage for 15 years. It means something to me, right? I'm not just going to sell that to you. This stuff means something to me. But then all of a sudden, he found something that was so much greater than what he had that he was joyous. It says right here, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy, his exuberance, his joy, his happiness, he found something that all of a sudden he's like, dude, I've got to go sell my fishing rod, and I got to go sell all my tools. I got to get rid of all that stuff and see how much money I could get for all that stuff so that I could go buy this field. And it was funny because the pastor said, hey, we might ought to consider. Let's don't consider the ethics of all of all that, but let's just consider the story, right? So that's in a split second, in a moment of time, what he thought was important, something that he thought was so important, completely vanished. Like he was willing to go home. And can you imagine the response of his wife? If I went home and told Leslie, "Hey, babe, we're going to sell everything we got today," and I just got a big old smile on my face. Do you know the convincing that would take? Like she would not go for that right off the bat. She would be like, "Oh my gosh, here's another one of your crazy stories that you got that you're fixing to get us into. What are you talking about? We're going to sell everything." And this guy, he was like, "Nope, I'm selling it all." Look, we're going to come up on a break. We got a break right now on the radio. So during the break, we're just going to hang out for a minute, and you guys on the radio could just listen to the messages, and we'll be right back right after these messages with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. I brought home some ideas before. I brought home some ideas before that Leslie didn't exactly go for. It's a sign of wisdom, I think, but we have different personalities for sure. But you can imagine this guy. He just comes home and says, "Hey, we're selling everything." And I just assume that he's married. It doesn't say that. He's out there working in a field, and he went and sold all he had, and then he went and bought the field. And he did it out of joy. And that was a big moment. That was a really big moment right there, that when he did it out of joy. And that, I thought, man, again, as soon as we get back from the break, I'm gonna get into that a little bit more, because I think that has a lot to do with it. And I hope you guys can see it so far. What we're aiming at is when you find your why. That's really the thing. When it comes to health, if you don't define your why, you will sabotage your health. I know that to be a fact. It's so easy. We live in a world that's so easy to sabotage your health. If you don't define exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your health, you won't exercise. If you haven't decided what you're going to do with your health, you won't get any sleep. If you haven't decided what you're going to do with your health, you'll just drink a soda full of sugar. High fructose corn syrup won't make you any difference. You won't care one bit whether or not you have high fructose corn syrup or you won't. And you won't understand the mechanisms of how it affects your body. You won't take your supplements. You'll go out to dinner and you'll eat whatever dinner there is. You'll go out and eat. Hey, let's go out. How many times have we all been together and someone says, "Hey, what do you guys want to eat?" And the answer is, "I don't care. Anything. Well, anything. Let's just go." Now, you're setting yourself up right there. You could do that, and you can be the one that doesn't cause stress with everybody else, but you're going to have to be super careful when you go to those places about what you're going to do and how you're going to put yourself into it. Same thing with your spouse, right? We do that together, and then pretty soon we're both unfit and unwell. All right, so let's get us back on the show. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're taking health to church tonight, and we're really talking about our why, like I love to talk about, but we're using some scripture to support it. So we're using Matthew 13:44, and we just talked about when a man found it, this treasure, he hid it again, and then in his joy, he went and he sold all he had, and he bought the field so he could go back and get the treasure. So, then in the second verse, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. So the first guy is unintentionally finding it. He didn't set out that day to find fabulous health. He didn't set out that day to find the treasure in the field, right? He was just going about his daily activities, And he just stumbled upon the treasure that was worth way more than anything. And you just got to imagine what that is. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe a Powerball ticket. I think I saw today it's 131 million or something like that. So if I just happen to be driving around and I just happen to see the Powerball ticket laying in someone's field, and I'm like, dude, I got to have that field so I could get that ticket. I'll go sell everything I have because the treasure that I have in the ticket is worth more than everything that I own, right? But the first guy, he wasn't looking for it. The second guy was looking for it. The second guy was seeking. He was seeking fine pearls, right? That he was looking for fine pearls. That's what he did. He got up in the morning and he's like, all right, I'm going out to get it. I'm going to go find this. That's my purpose, is to go try to find these fine pearls. When he found one of great value, like massively great value, he sold everything he had and he bought it. So what do we find? What do we find when we find the treasure of heaven, right? When we find salvation, that's greater than any possible thing that we could have on earth. Finding the kingdom and recognizing its all surpassing value leads to great joy. Yeah, you would think like, man, I know the beginning from the end from the beginning. Like, I get that. I know how this story is going to turn out. It's not. That's what I mean. If I've learned anything from my dad passing, it's like everybody wants me to be sad and everybody wants me to tell me how hard it is. They want to tell me how hard it is. I'm like, Dad found a treasure, and you think that it's hard on him? You should have seen him beforehand, right? Like you should have. All of a sudden, like he just traded that broken down, worn out, massively inflamed, horrible body that he was trapped in for the treasure of heaven. And somehow that's supposed to be hard on me. It's like what was hard on me was the time he was here. That was what was hard on me, right? And it's like, why do you have joy about that? Why do I see his face and smile? It's like his obituary picture is just such a great picture of him, and it just smile. I'm like, yeah, that's my dad right there. He's no longer trapped. He's no longer trapped in this physical flesh that was just choking him down, right? He's free and it's joyous. So we find great joy. The place of perfect and permanent justice. The invitation to receive full forgiveness. The land of unending abundance. The promise of eternal life. The most faithful love. God himself. Man, that'll make you, if you want to get emotional about something, I mean, if you think about that, man, it's like, yeah. Love deepens over time. God's love is eternal. And one of the things that he used as an example of that is, he said his grandpa, when he was 70 years old, said something about, looked at his wife, his grandma. So this is the pastor talking. And the pastor said, I talked to my grandpa one time and he said something about my grandpa. And he said, isn't she just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? And he was a kid. He was a kid and he kind of looked at grandma and he was like, I don't know if he didn't really believe grandpa at that point. He was like, the grandpa's judgment was a little suspect at that point. But to grandpa, that it was true, because love deepens over time. And I can attest to that. It's 37 years with Leslie that I've been in love with that girl. And I just told her before we left how that she said something smart aleck to me. And I said, just because you're the most beautiful girl in the world doesn't mean you can get away with all those smart aleck comments. And then I gave her a little kiss and I left. And she does. When he said that yesterday, I thought to myself, wow, like love deepens with time. Well, can you imagine how old God is? Can you imagine how old this earth is? I mean, can you imagine before I was in my mother's womb, he knew me? Well, so how long has he known me? So How much does he love me, right? The treasure in that is just unbelievable, really. It's sometimes it's really it's unfathomable what that is. Um, the perfect the place of perfect and permanent justice. One of the things I wrote down in my notes is that Jesus was a perfect person who was crucified unjustly. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. A bad thing happened to him and he didn't deserve it. He didn't do anything to deserve it other than fulfill his purpose. And if something bad happens to us, sometimes we'll just flip out over it and we'll go crazy over it and really not understand it, right? And but it does happen sometime. And sometimes we got to be able to move along. We got to be able to understand it and move along. So let's get to the selling part, okay? The selling begins immediately without hesitation. When you find the value, you immediately buy in. Joy drives the pursuit of the kingdom at all cost. And that made me think of the man at the well. The man at the well went away sad and didn't sell his stuff. When I do a good enough job on this show to share with you the joy that I have in health, to share with you the treasure of health, when you finally get it, whether you get it from me or you forget it from someone else, when you finally get it, you will no longer say this sentence, which I have heard lots of times in some form or fashion. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I hate to waste things. And as soon as we eat all of these cookies, as soon as all these peanut butter crackers are gone, I'll, I'll start being healthy. Yeah, I just bought some cheap fish oil at Walgreens or Sam's. I went to Sam's. I went to Costco, and I got some cheap fish oil. It sucks. I have to take about 15 of these pieces of pills a day in order to get the EPA and the DHA that I need to. But I don't want to waste it, right? Do you think either one of those guys that found those treasures? Do you think what did they do? When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had. How many days went by before he sold all he had? How long, when this guy finally found the treasure that was worth more than he had ever seen in his life, how long did it take him before he went and sold his stuff? It doesn't say that he found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy waited 90 days and then sold all of his stuff. It doesn't say 6 months later he sold all of his stuff. It doesn't say that he went and thought about it and talked to his friends about it and looked at another podcast about it and then did some research on it to decide whether or not it was true. It says he found it, he hid it, and he went and sold his stuff. He immediately went and sold his stuff. Because selling begins immediately without hesitation. When you finally realize that the peanut butter crackers are making you inflamed and the refined carbohydrates are killing you and they're taking away your joy. And think about it. How many of us have said, "Oh man, I got to give up my Cokes." Like that, man, I got to give up Bluebell ice cream. Like, yeah, that reminds me of the guy at the well, because Jesus said, "Go sell your stuff and come follow me." And then where'd he go? What's the next scripture? What's the next story in that guy at the well? There's not a next story. It doesn't say what the guy did, but it's other than the guy went away sad. I think we've got it somewhere in here, but I know it's in the Bible, but it's somewhere in my notes that he said that, and it just reminded me of that the man went away sad and didn't sell his stuff because he didn't have joy. So there's joy in finding the treasures of health, which automatically shows you that, like, you're talking to a kid who's been eating sugar his whole entire life for 49, 50 something years. 51 years. It's been 2 years and 3 months since I've had any sugar to count of. But so I'm 53 years old. So I was 51 years, for 51 years, I ate Snickers bars and loved ice cream. It's Memorial Day weekend. Are you kidding me? Would we not have brownies? How many of you guys had brownies and vanilla ice cream today? You guys cooking out? What are you cooking out? Hamburgers with buns and and let's have some Dorito chips. Let's get some hamburgers and some Dorito chips, and maybe we'll throw some stuff on the grill, and then what else are we going to have? Some cantaloupe and some watermelon and whatever else is the thing. And then we're going to have some cookies. I guarantee you, we're going to have a deal of cookies, and we're going to have some sort of ice cream that's going to go with it. At my house, we're going to have them. And then in one day, one moment, all of a sudden, I gave it up, and now it's just like I'm not sad whatsoever. I'm not depressed because of the joy I've found in another level of health. And I'm still a long way from achieving maximum health as far as I think. I really think that there's a deeper level of health that I can get to. I think I could be more fit. I think I could be more mentally sound. I think my brain can work even better than it does. I'm going uphill at 53 years old. And I don't even know where the uphill is going to stop. But I can tell you that it's not sad. It's not sad at all. How do we do this with health? How do we find that thing, right? The pearl of the kingdom is worth more than whatever you have and whatever you are chasing. The pearl of the kingdom of health is worth more than you have. If you could live your life without inflammation, if you could live your life without joint pain, if you could live your life without brain fog, how about the golfer this weekend, dadgummit, that checked himself out of the golf tournament and then went home and killed himself? And he did a TV an interview beforehand about how his parents had gone through all of these challenges with him because of his alcoholism and depression, right? And then he went home and killed himself. Professional golfer. If you didn't hear about it, you can look it up, right? He lost his health. What do we know about depression and alcoholism? Why alcoholism? Left hemisphere deficiency, dopamine deficiency, right? The right hemisphere loves adrenaline, that has an affinity for adrenaline. Read it in The Master and His Emissary. The right hemisphere has an affinity for adrenaline. The left hemisphere has an affinity for dopamine. If we're not firing, we're stuck in the right hemisphere. For whatever reason we're stuck in the right hemisphere, we're going to get depressed because the right hemisphere is going to look for tigers all day long. And if there's tigers everywhere, it's depressing. So we're going to get depression on the right side, and then we're going to have a lack of dopamine on the left hemisphere because we're not firing from right to left. And so we're going to go to an external source to get our dopamine, which is alcohol. And now what is alcohol going to do? It's going to break us down. So alcohol is going to break us down, and we're going to be depressed. And what happens when we lose our health? We make very bad decisions like shooting ourselves or kill. I don't know how you did it, but killing ourselves, right? But we don't have to go to that extreme. We don't have to go all the way to that extreme. We can go to the extreme that watching my dad for the last 50 years of my life. Go back and look at all of the decisions that he made. Go back and look at all of the decisions mentally that he made because his brain wasn't functioning properly, because his spine wasn't functioning properly. Go back and look at me. Look at all the decisions I made. Look at the weight that I've carried around for the last 30 years. I went from being a college quarterback at 198 pounds to, at my 30-year reunion, 283 pounds. And I'll tell you what 283 pounds does to you. It depresses the crap out of you. It creates problems with your spouse. It causes lousy leadership with your children. It causes ill health for your children because of your lack of health. It causes depression for yourself. It causes lack of monetary value because you're a wellness doctor trying to tell people about wellness and you're 283 pounds. There is a contradiction as big as this building in the life I have lived. So I know exactly to a certain extent some of the depression that goes along with it. And I wasn't even depressed, but it's the life that I could have had because I didn't find my treasure of health, because I didn't even look for my treasure of health because I was too busy looking for something else. And in the process of being too busy looking for something else, I was losing the joy of life. I was losing the joy of life. And I think maybe I'm not alone. I think maybe some of you might be in the same exact boat. I think some of you don't even understand that eating refined carbohydrates and drinking sodas is taking away your joy, and it's increasing your stiffness, and it's decreasing your brain function, which also by our article says that it might be decreasing our immune system function. If our nervous system isn't working good and our nervous system isn't firing properly, either too much or too little. That I learned that in chiropractic school. There's only two diseases on the earth. There's either too much of something or too little of something. And if we have too much stress, whether it's physical, chemical, or mental, emotional stress, and we have too much of that, we could be driving our sympathetic nervous system too hard and pushing our immune system too hard and creating all kinds of ill effects of having a hyperactive immune system. And then what we might get? Maybe we might get Hashimoto's disease. Maybe we might get lupus. Maybe we might get MS. Maybe we might have some of those things happen, right? Because no one really wants to discuss why we get MS. No one really wants to discuss that. They're not going to solve those problems. Why in the heck would they solve problems that make millions or billions of dollars for pharmaceutical companies? To live without drugs would make a lot of people lose their jobs. There would be a lot of people lose their jobs. There's going to be a lot of people lose their jobs if we lived without sugar. So I know on a big scale it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. But it might happen for us. It might happen for you and I. It might happen for you and I and our spouses, and maybe you and I and our spouses and our kids. And then if that was the case, maybe our kids might actually get spouses and have an influence on them about how health might work. And then maybe their kids, so our grandkids, might actually be healthier than us. When you guys have heard me say this before, when I gave my father-in-law this speech, after he had come back from Baylor Medical with diabetes and cirrhosis of the liver, that he owned a donut and cake shop for 22 years. Remember, that's the story. And go figure, he got diabetes and then he got cirrhosis of the liver, and he did not drink alcohol. And he got cirrhosis of the liver because half of sugar is fructose. The other half is glucose. And fructose is a toxin in the body, and fructose is only metabolized in the liver. So fructose goes to the liver. That's from Robert Lustig, MD. Sugar, the Bitter Truth. You can let him explain it to you. It goes to the liver. And so fructose goes to the liver, and so does orange juice, which is fructose, or apple juice, or any of those other fructose containing things, and so does corn whiskey. So those are all fructose that goes to the liver, right? So after he went and got on the deal and he came back and I had to give it to him. I had to give him my health talk at least once because I have to live with Leslie for the rest of my life. I had to give him the health talk, and when I gave him the health talk, he had just gone to Sam's and bought an entire deal of peanut butter crackers. That's where that reference came from. He bought that whole entire deal of peanut butter crackers, and then he said, well, because peanut butter is really high in omega-6 fatty acids, which is inflammatory, and he says, Jacob, you want some crackers? And that's what he said. Jacob was sitting right there at the table, and he took his peanut butter crackers that he wasn't supposed to eat, and he gave them to Jacob. And I said, Bob, Jacob doesn't need the peanut butter crackers either. If he eats the peanut butter crackers for the next 50 years, he'll be just like you. We don't want that to happen, right? Our grandkids, our kids, us, you and I, and our spouses, and our kids, and our grandkids might actually be healthier if we understood how to eat, if we understood how to move, If we found the treasure, and the only reason that we don't, in my opinion, because we have so much knowledge. If you really found the treasure of health, it wouldn't. You would be so joyous. You could literally buy, I bet you, 1,000 books. You could watch 1,000 hours of these podcasts to talk about health. You could join multiple gyms with multiple trainers in towns all over the world. You would be so joyous that it's at your fingertips. It's the joy of health is, and the treasure of health is right at our fingertips. So if that's the case, why have we not bought it? Why have we not sold all of the things that we have? Why have we not just said, you know what? I'm throwing these crackers away today joyously. I'm throwing them in the trash because that's where they belong. They're garbage. They belong in the trash. So why haven't we done that? And I really, truly, 100% believe that we do not believe in the value of health. I don't believe that we do. We don't, either like the first guy, by accident, we don't believe it. We don't understand it. We're so ignorant of it and naive that we just have no idea. Or the second guy who's been searching for it and found it, but we've been searching for it, but we don't believe in it. We don't have because I think if we found it, we would be so overjoyed. We would be so overjoyed with the possibility of living a life in a vessel and being healthy to the end. We think 80 is old, and 80 is not old. We should be, what if we were rocking at 120? Like, what if we weren't breaking down? Because I don't see where the breakdown happens other than the body's inability to adapt to this refined carbohydrate type of thing. It's either some sort of stress, physical, chemical, or mental, emotional. Now you could go back 1,000 years and say, well, people died. You could go back 500 years and say people died. Yep. So far, everybody's died. So I think there is a time that we eventually wear this body down. But we're way longer than we could be. I think we could go. I mean, we could go a lot longer than we are. So, ultimately, the parable is about the ultimate value of the kingdom. You can't buy Jesus with money. You just got given the gift of it. The gift of health was already there. It was already in the field. You didn't put it in the field. We didn't invent it. I didn't invent health. Nobody else on the internet invented health. Nobody else on the planet invented health. It was already there. And what happened was it was put there by the one who made the field. the joy and the joy of health was put there by the one who made health. It was like, here, this is the way it's supposed to go. I mean, for goodness sakes, the story is he put us in a garden. Like, go figure that we walked and talked with God in the garden. We walked. It didn't say we sat and talked with God. It didn't say we sat by ourselves and didn't talk to anybody. It said we walked and talked with God in the garden. I would think that has to mean something. I would think that there was a message right there. So that's the story. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back tomorrow night live again at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And I hope you guys have a great evening. And if there's anything we could do for you, just let us know. 806-794-0400. And I will see you